Well, welcome, folks, to the CHEK Blog. I am James Phelps, and I'm here today with Warren Williams, CHEK faculty member, founder, and owner of Warren Williams Coaching. It's good to see you, Warren.
Yeah, good to see you too. Season's greetings for all of those who will be watching this. Well, I don't know if it will come out before the new year, but or Happy New Year, depending on when you're actually watching this.
That's right. Well, we can always say, season's greetings whenever it is. But we're going to talk about, speaking of season's greetings and the holidays, you're going to talk to us today about something that is, I think, really appropriate for this time of year. Officially, what we're talking about today is I Don't Mind If I Do. Are you starving for food or something else? But it fits in really well with this time of year. So I'm very excited. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah. Like you said, it's an apt time of year. You know, the interesting thing about this time of year, as we all know, people celebrate. It's almost like they wait for the whole year to go by and work as hard as they like, and then they take this 2-week period, if some people actually get 2 weeks off, to almost, stuff themselves with food, get sick, and then start the new year by saying, right, I'm now going to go to the gym 5 days a week. I'm going to go organic, or I'm going to go in a detox, and all this sort of stuff. And then, the cycle continues. So, people stuff themselves almost like they're so unhappy with their life or how things are going that they feel that somehow food is a way to actually appease them. So, we preface this by talking about this need for people to eat to fulfill a gap. And as we'll go through in this talk, that gap is being created by not food, but something else. And we'll get to that in a bit.
Great.
So we start off by talking about, something we've mentioned before when it comes to awareness, because the first thing when it comes to I don't mind if I do, and I use that as an example because normally whenever people go somewhere, if they go to someone's house, oh, you have to have coffee, or would you like a jam donut, or would you like this? And it's always, oh, I don't mind if I do, I don't mind if I do. You never really get people saying, no, it's okay, I'm actually full, or I'm actually satiated, or I'm actually nutritionally satisfied right now. They always are, well, I don't mind if I do. Would you like another cake? Of course, I don't mind if I do. That's why I wanted to kind of put that at the start, because we have this inability to almost stop ourselves from taking something when it's presented to us, especially if it's free. You go to someone's house, you're not paying for it, so it's free.
Right. That's right.
So it's like, I don't mind if I do. and it's another reason why a lot of these all-you-can-eat restaurants are prevalent throughout the world, because people think, I just pay once and I can keep eating. Okay, I'm going to keep eating. And, they don't eat once. So, nutritionally, I'm being present. I can actually feel that I'm satiated. I'll have no more. They're like, okay, the food is right in front of me. I don't mind if I do. And they'll just keep going. And, when you look at, it makes me kind of laugh because humans think they are so superior to animals in all respects. And if you look at cows in a field of grass, that's their food. That's almost like an entree to them. That's just non-stop, unlimited food. But you don't see them eating non-stop. And then they get so full they fall asleep. They fall over. Imagine a cow just kind of falling on their side because they don't do that. They eat and they realize they're full, but there's still grass there, and they say, I'm full, and then they just do whatever they do for the rest of the day. They graze, they chill out, they play. But imagine a human with just non-stop cakes and fruit and all these sort of things in front of them. How many of them will say, I'm only going to eat just enough, because as we know, you're not supposed to eat until you're full. You're supposed to leave a little bit of a gap. But how many people with free food in front of them have the ability to eat only enough and to be present enough with that food? Most people in the Western world don't. So they, again, have this mentality, I don't mind if I do. They will keep eating and keep eating until they physically cannot eat anymore. And then you see these examples of people, when they finish eating, they untie their belt, and they in their chair because they're like, there's no more room. But we know if someone ran into their house with a gun right now, they can't run out because they're stuffed. So we know it's not functional. And animals can do that because they have left the gap. They're intelligent enough to know when enough is enough. And so what we're saying here is, a lot of humans don't know when enough is enough. And this goes back to this idea of when we talk about these 4 stages of conscious awareness. And again, for those who haven't listened to the previous videos, if you're new to the CHEK blog, we'll just kind of summarize those again. So we go through 4 stages of awareness when it comes to our conscious mind. The first stage is unconscious incompetence. So the example you always use is like a smoker who smokes, and everybody in the world knows smoking kills, but somehow these people are unconsciously incompetent of the idea, so they keep smoking. And then eventually they get to a second stage, which is conscious incompetence. So that second stage means they're now at a stage where they're aware that smoking is actually not that good for them because someone close to them has either died from cancer or someone is suffering from cancer. So they get this reality check and they're now in the stage of contemplation. So now they think, no, I should actually do something about this. So they may go and talk to somebody who's stopped. They may go and get Nicorette patches, go online and do the research. But they're still doing a bad habit. That's why they now are at the stage of conscious incompetence. They're still incompetent in that they're still doing it, but they're conscious of it. And then the third stage, which is the action stage, is when they get to conscious competence. And the reason why they're consciously competent is they have to constantly keep thinking about doing the action all day, every day. I've got to remember to stop. I've got to remember to put the cigarettes in the, in the container and lock it. I've got to remember to, not set money aside for my cigarettes or whatever it is. So they get to the stage of constantly thinking about the idea of the action. And then eventually they've done it so often that it becomes a habit. And when it's a habit, it's automatic. So now it's at the stage of unconscious competence. Because it's so unconscious, they don't have to think about it, they just act. So we're trying to get our listeners to be consciously aware of the habit of overeating now in this example. So most people in the Western world are at the stage of unconscious incompetence to the fact that they just keep, saying yes. We said before, your yes has no power until you learn to say no.
That's right. Yeah.
They're not saying no. They're just like, I don't mind if I do. That's always the yes. Always the yes.
Right.
So, so this is the initial part where they're not being present with the idea that they're full. They're not understanding that there's this thing called satiation, where their body's telling them they are nutritionally optimized. They have enough energy in their body for the next few hours. They don't need to eat more. So they lack this awareness to be present with the second brain. Is classically called the enteric nervous system. So the gut is called the second brain because, it can respond by itself independently of the brain. So we have to connect to that second brain to be aware of the fact that we are nutritionally satisfied. So now we go to the kind of digestive process as to why some people, because this is now, the first stage was like be conscious or lack thereof awareness of the food and whether or not you are full. So the second stage is digestively, are you satisfied? So if you are consciously aware of your body, but you still feel like you're hungry, it could be a digestive issue. And one of the things that can drive that could be if somebody is eating non-foods. So when we talk about non-foods, we're talking about foods, obviously, as you know, James, foods that have no nutrition or not enough nutrition to run the circuit or to run the human correctly. So we know non-foods are typically commercial foods. Foods that have chemicals, additives, preservatives, basically foods that are so dead, so nutritionally dead, that when you eat them, the apostat, which is the neural control center in the brain that regulates appetite, is actually seeking nutrition from the food that you've eaten. So let's say you eat a commercial apple. Once it's being digested by the body, the apostat searches for nutrition from the apple. And if it deems that there's no nutrition from the apple, regardless of the calories that came with it, it says you are still hungry, keep eating. So you get this command from the apostat saying you're hungry, still eat. So you start eating more. And what we find is people that are obese, you don't ever see, very rarely see people that are eating organic, high quality food that are obese because you're getting the nutrition with the calories. You normally see is obese people eating dead food. All you have to do is go to a supermarket and look at an obese person and then look in their body and you just see dead food. And what happens is, because the food is so dead, they have to eat thousands upon thousands of calories to fill their stomach because their apostat keeps saying, you're still hungry, keep eating. So what happens is their stomach has to keep expanding for all the dead food and all the dead calories that are coming with it. So that's why they overeat. And that's why another reason from a digestive point of view, why people can be starving, because they're just not getting enough nutrition on to run the circuit. And, nutritionally, what we find as well is some people that are eating so much food that is dead, it actually takes your own life force to charge the food to give it the energy. And then because you're actually giving your energy to the food to give it energy, you're actually in an energy deficit. So then it's another reason why people will start to say, I need more, and they'll keep eating. So, we have to understand that obviously, as we know, the first stage of digestion is in the mind, and then the second stage is in the mouth, where you go through mixing and churning. So that's one stage of digestion. So if you do that first and you start to chew your food more thoroughly, then you're going to get more nutrition from the food that you're eating, even if it's dead. But obviously the first choice is high quality organic food. Then we go through ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation, and elimination. We have to go through these other 5 stages, as well as the mixing and churning. So those are 6 stages total. And if all of our systems are operating correctly, if our liver, our bowel, our digestive organs are working efficiently, and we can digest high quality food, then we won't be starving nutritionally because we're actually getting nutrients. See, the thing is people think that food is for taste, and it's not. Taste just makes it easier to eat it, or to have a command to want to eat it. But food is for nutrition. I always say you really think, like when you see pigeons flying around, they go, oh my gosh, that stone, move, I want that stone tastes nice. I remember the last time I had that stone, it was so nice. They don't care about taste. That's why you see them eating stones and pieces of rock. So long as it is malleable, it's going to body, And it's like, you really think a cow is like, oh my gosh, this grass tastes so nice. I just need a bit of pepper. It's going to go well with this. They're not eating for taste. They're eating for nutrition. And that's where we fail. We're so focused on taste because of something else that we're going to get to in a minute. So we're so focused on this taste that we're lacking the understanding that the taste is a bonus, but the benefit is the nutrition that's carrying this taste. So, and another thing when it comes to digestive system is looking at the, Paul CHEK, our great friend Paul CHEK's understanding of this, or, tool that he teaches us, which is Dr. Quiet.
Right.
If you're eating the highest quality nutrition in the world, but you're in a rush and you chew 4 times per mouthful, it's not going to be broken down efficiently enough to go through those 6 stages of digestion. So you're still not going to get enough nutrition to run the body. So as Paul says, we have to go into a stage of Dr. Quiet where we're present with the food. And if we're present with the food and we take our time to eat it slowly, we digest it properly. And again, we go through the stage of satiation. So now another thing just for people to bear in mind when it comes to digesting, because we're talking about this digestive process, is that if you have suboptimal digestion, and the way you know that is, if you eat something and you find that you're doing a number 2 very quickly, or whenever you eat something you never feel that you have a complete evacuation, you do number 2 and you don't feel like you're completely clear. This would be someone that has suboptimal digestion. So if you're one of those people, you shouldn't be watching TV and eating food, because the amount of energy, the eyes are one of the most energy usage systems in the body, because our vision, our depth perception changes moment to moment. So if I look at the screen and then I look up, that's a completely different distance. So my eyes have to readjust. So our eyes are using up so much energy. So if we're watching TV, because we know that the human eye only sees at 24 frames, maybe up to 40 frames per second, HD TVs are running at 50, 60, 70 frames per second. It takes a lot of information for our eyes to process all that information. So if we're eating food while we're watching TV, the energy that is normally diverted to the gut is being diverted to the eyes. So that it affects our ability to digest food as well. So that's why we talk about being present with the food. So again, this is for people that have suboptimal digestion. They would need to make that a priority. So turn off your TV and eat your food in total silence, or being fully present. So those are some of the things that we can kind of use to help the digestive process as to whether or not somebody is being satiated. And then we have to go through, motilling, the ability to pump food through the body so that we're getting the peristalsis reaction of digesting the food and completely moving it through so that the waste can be extracted from the body, because if the waste stays in the body, it tires us out and we feel like we need to eat more because we're tired. So all of these sort of things can help. And obviously another thing that will help digestion, we kind of spoke about this with the Dr. Quiet, but just looking at the kind of more scientific way of looking at it, the two branches of the autonomic nervous system being parasympathetic or rest digest system, and sympathetic, which is activity system. If somebody's stressed out all the time, they're tired and wired, as Paul says, then if they're sympathetically dominant all the time, then suppresses the muscular contractions of the body's ability to digest food. It kind of it reduces peristalsis, it reduces digestion, it reduces hydrochloric acid. So that itself can impact our body's ability to digest food efficiently as well. So with that in mind, we want to make sure that people are calm. So if people find that they're agitated and they're excited all the time, perhaps spend 2 or 3 minutes doing slow breathing exercises, rhythmic breathing. Even if you inhale for 5, hold for 5, exhale for 5, and you count, that's allowing your mind to focus on the breath. Do that for a couple of minutes so that you're in a calm state, so you're shifting back into a parasympathetic system, increasing the body's ability to digest food and then eat your food. And that will, again, help to allow the body to satiate itself through the food that we're eating. So, those are kind of like the digestive processes that we need to make sure are switched on and functional for us to get the energy from the food of its high quality. So then the final part of what we were kind of talking about was the emotional connection to whether or not somebody's satiated. So what we find is a lot of people comfort eat. We all know this, and they're comfort eating because of an emotional burden. So there are a lot of people that are eating physically food to cover an emotional imbalance. So they're starving emotionally or they're starving spiritually. So we see this a lot with a lot of adrenaline junkies or achievers that they have to keep going for the next goal because they never feel satisfied. And because they never feel satisfied inside, they work so hard to create some form of adrenaline stimulation so that they can feel satisfied with something they've accomplished. And those sort of people, they're starving emotionally. So they're always looking for the next high. And because they're starving emotionally, because you can't, jump off, do bungee jumps all day, every day. The other way they find the way to fulfill themselves is by just eating food. And they overeat because they're trying to fill a gap. And that gap is emotional stability or emotional satiety, being satiated through some form of emotional achievement. And that emotional achievement, what we're talking about is happiness. And when we talk about happiness, remember, as we always break down, success is getting what you want, but happiness is wanting what you get. So I'll say that again. Success is getting what you want, but happiness is wanting what you get. So you see a lot of people that are financially successful, and we've spoken about this before in our other success versus fulfillment, so I'm not going to go into it too deep. But, when people aren't achieving fulfillment inside, they find another way to create something to fulfill that gap, which is eating food, because, again, people get great pleasure out of eating food. And so they use the pleasure of eating food to cover the lack of pleasure from their life. And because they lack this pleasure for their life, they have a unfulfilled life, but they eat the best food they can. They go to the best restaurants, and I don't mean the best as in organic. I mean the best tasting ones. They'll go to all you can eats all the time. They're always, whenever they come home from work, they're depressed. They'll go and get the ice cream. They'll just eat that. And then the next day continues, but they've never dealt with the burden within themselves. And like Paul always says, the addiction to this food is covering up the unmet need. And the unmet need is the lack of fulfillment or lack of true love, as Paul always says, finding their dream. And as we know, most people don't find their dream. So if they don't find their dream, they eat their way through life because that's their only pleasure. And that's why they call it your guilty pleasure. Because they know that they shouldn't do it because they've already put the word guilty in front of it. So if you're guilty, that means you're guilty of a crime. And if you call it a guilty pleasure, then you know it's a crime. If you know it's a crime, then you know in your own perception that it's wrong. So you're really prefacing it by calling it a guilty pleasure. So people are doing this all the time to, again, cover up this inability to find love within themselves. And a lot of people are afraid to actually talk about love, especially men. Men don't talk about love at all. That's what women do. It's just a weakness for them. And, again, quoting, Deepak Chopra when he says, when Tony Robbins asked him, how do you become invincible? He said, by becoming defenseless. You let go. So people, they try to armor themselves up to their problems. They pretend they don't have them. And then they, in their own time, they're starving emotionally, so they feed themselves. And then they just go to the gym to work it off because they don't want people to realize they're actually gluttonous with the way their habits are. And that's why you see a lot of people killing themselves in the gym, or a lot of people, you know, traveling from holiday to holiday to holiday, or a lot of people taking cocaine, or a lot of people on crack, or a lot of people on any form of drug, anything that can numb their senses so they don't realize that they're actually still starving emotionally.
Yeah.
So, that's the missing link, is the happiness. Because once you're happy, you have a spiritual relationship with food, not a carnivorous relationship with food. Because again, that's just the symptom that you're working on, rather than the problem, which is the internal love, or the lack thereof, or the personal programming, or the lack of your core values, or the lack of a definition. And like Paul says, if you go through life without a direction, any path will take you there. So if any path will take you there, destructive drugs can take you there, and overeating will take you there. So fulfillment first.
Yeah. And so when you're working with a client, we talked about a couple of different issues. Do you find is it more challenging to get a client to this sort of mindset where they are relaxing when they eat, right? Where they've got their Dr. Quiet mode on. They have all their electronics off. They're not looking at their phone. They're eating in quiet. Or is it more difficult often to get people just to shift to the sort of organic whole food, that sort of thing?
Yeah, that's definitely a lot harder to get them to shift. So again, we create a rainbow bridge. So the first thing I would say to them is, because they always have this objection. I always find this, people always create objections so they can justify the lifestyle that brought them to see you in the first place.
Yeah.
And they want you to obviously just take that problem away, like put it in a bag, lock it up. But so what I find is, when it comes to this idea of organic food being too expensive, I just laugh at it. Like I had a football agent I was working with the other day tell me that, he goes, yeah, but organic food's too expensive, right? And I started laughing. I goes, have you actually bought any? He's like, no, but it's too expensive. And I said, that's what everybody says until they bought it.
Yeah.
So, we went and explained that it's actually probably about 20-30% more expensive, but you actually eat less of it because you're getting more nutrition. That's right. So I explained the whole concept of what we spoke about, where eating dead food means you have to eat more calories to run the program. So by definition, non-organic food is actually more expensive because you have to eat more.
Right.
So once you go through that kind of explanation, because when I said that to him, he's like, right, sold. All right, I'm off. I'm going to go and buy some. So that's kind of the first roadblock, is this understanding of something they've never even studied, because, everybody's expert in something they've never studied.
Yeah.
I'm like, hold on, have you ever studied? You're debating a subject. Just like religious people, like we said on the last blog, they're debating, or they're fighting over a concept they've never studied and broken down to see if it's actually correct. So this idea is actually not correct, but they run with it. And then once you kind of get them to understand that organic food is actually cheaper based on the nutrition that it gives you, and therefore the less food you need to eat, then the next challenge is for them to actually eat slower. So rather than eat awareness, eat slower. So that's the next thing. So how I get them to eat slower is, what we find is, like Paul always says, the average person only chews their food 4 times per mouthful. So the reason why is because they have a habit of constantly holding the fork or spoon in their hand, and they eat, and their spoon goes right back to the plate. So they see, oh my gosh, there's more food. I don't mind if I do. They stuff that food back in. So what I do with the clients is, and again, these people listening can try this, is once you put a mouthful in, put the spoon down and just chew. And, wait until it's fully digested. And what I've had to get them to do is count how many times they're chewing. I said, right, unless it's like a banana, which is so soft, you can't chew it 30 times. But, obviously the rule is chew it until it's liquefied. I have to get them to count first, though. So I say, right, I want you to count at least 15 chews before you pick up that knife or fork or spoon. So when I've done that, and they realize how fast they normally eat. And then they pick back up the fork, and then they have the next one, and that's how you slow them down. And then create the habit. So I get them to journal it and make sure they've done it for at least 10 days or so they're creating a habit. So it goes from that unconscious stage to the conscious stage. So those are the first ways that you can get them to kind of moving into being present and eating slower. Then after that, we focus on doing breathing exercises and doing your prayers, before you eat. Bless the food and have a great appreciation. Or eating with your hand because it gives you a great appreciation. Or take your time when you make food, because if you took 2 hours to make something, you'd be less inclined to want to eat it in 2 minutes. Because it's like all that hard work, you want to appreciate it. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, so actually that if you're combining that 15 chews with sort of separating yourself from digital, from computers and phones, it turns into pretty substantial Dr. Quiet time too.
Yeah. Exactly. It becomes a routine. Like we talk about morning rituals, it becomes a eating ritual. Because if you think like you have to spend 30 seconds or a minute doing your prayer, that's going to add time to the meal. Yeah. You got to put your fork or your knife in between. Yeah. You got to count how many chews.
Yeah.
It might spread the meal out to 15, 20 minutes. Yeah. And some people say, well, I spend an hour in a restaurant. I'm like, yeah, but what are you doing? First of all, you're waiting half an hour to get the food because they're waiting for you to eat all the bread to jack your blood sugar levels up more. Then you're drinking wine, which then opens the spindle cells in your gut wall, making you intolerant to everything you eat. Yeah. And then when you're eating, you're talking and eating, so you're chewing a little bit, forcing it down so you can continue the conversation. So you're not being present. So it's an hour, but it's not really an hour.
Yeah. And I like you. One of some of the things that you're talking about really sort of cued me in on this season too, especially this is this really emotional season, and we have weeks where we're going to parties and whether it's at work or friends, and doing all the things that you were just talking about, like eating really fast and talking with people and not chewing right, and we go through this long and eating lots of like sugary stuff, right?
And alcohol.
Yeah, and so you go through this real extreme. And then a lot of people, when the New Year starts, as you said, go through an absolutely different extreme that's sort of motivated by guilt, right? You eat all this food, you feel guilty, so you set these massive goals for yourself, right? And inevitably, as we know too, those all end up kind of falling apart too.
Yeah.
And that idea of the extremes are hard. I think that's one of the things that what you're talking about brings up, right? Extremes are hard, whether it's extreme like eating a lot, that's hard on your body, or the extreme rebound where you're trying to change everything and eat all these good foods and exercise and all at once is just extremes are hard.
Yeah. So, with that, the easiest thing for people to do is if they want to have a few takeaways from what we spoke about shifting so they're not at this I don't mind if I do stage is, first of all, decide whether or not by becoming present if you are actually hungry, and don't just accept everything because it's free. So it's like sometimes if I go somewhere and people say, because as soon as you walk in someone's house, people are offering you stuff. But let's say you just came from your house and do 10 minutes to get to their house, and it's tradition. It's the thing to do when someone comes to your house is to offer you something. Yeah. And you say, yeah, I don't mind if I do. Stop saying that and think, actually, I just ate 10 minutes ago. I actually don't need that right now.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing, is changing this automatic pilot of I don't mind if I do. The second thing is, like we said, to practice counting your food or counting your chews and putting the fork down in between the meals. The third thing would be to do the same thing by turning the TV off and being present. And then the fourth thing is, doing a personal prayer before your food. And that personal prayer doesn't have to be, some big elaborate thing. It could just be something as simple as, I'm so thankful that this food will, satisfy me, satiate me, and give me the nutrition I need to continue working throughout the day. Yeah. Something simple like that. And so we're talking about that with the nutrition and how to get the nutrition into the body. The other is obviously a bigger thing, because this is more about why you feel that you're starving emotionally.
Yeah.
And see, that would be simple things such as starting to study Paul Chek's 1, 2, 3, 4 of how to overcome addictions, obesity, and disease. That's a good program. As well as learning about your core values, understand what core values are, your personal program that defines, your parameters for doing and living. Define those. Find out what your parameters are for relationships, what your program parameters are for lifestyle, your parameters are for nutrition. How many times you want to eat a day, what sort of times a day you want to eat, create a regular cycle for your eating every 4 hours. And if that's the case, don't just say, I don't mind if I do it. Someone always offers you something. And find out what you feel you're here for. what's your contribution to the world that you can give? Because everybody has an incredible gift or an ability. Why do you feel that you're here? Mm. If you're not sure about what that is, what do you find most of your time, dreaming about doing? Mm-hmm. If money was unlimited, time was unlimited, what would you always want to do? And if you know that, you'll pretty much know what your dream is. And as we know, if you don't know what your dream is, figure out what you don't like. Yeah. Just do the opposite of what you don't like.
That's right.
And that will help to curb this loss inside you that makes you feel compelled to have these guilty pleasures in the first place.
Yeah. I just want to rewind back to one more thing before we wrap it up today. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about that sort of moment of gratitude, the prayer that you have, that you do before you eat. I mean, is the function really of that just to sort of bring yourself into present with the food? Is there something more to it than that?
Yeah, it's this emotional appreciation. Mm-hmm. So, we talk about films all the time. It's like when you watch Avatar, and when he kills the deer, and then he runs over to it and he does the prayer and he's blessing the prayer for the deer for allowing it to share its life force, and it's not dead. Its life force has now entered them, and it helps its life continue through them. So it's a lot of it is we have this disconnect. We talk about in this digital age where we're so disconnected from everything. But if you feel that food just goes in goes through the alimentary canal from mouth to anus, and it does nothing else, it's just to allow you to keep abusing yourself, then you don't have a healthy relationship with food. But if you do a prayer for food, it gives you an appreciation for the value of it. So you place more value. So I suppose it's the easiest way to kind of say it is doing a prayer helps you to place a value on the food, the effect it's having on your body. And if you do that, you would never do a prayer over a McDonald's milkshake. Right. I'm so blessed to have this milkshake or Coca-Cola or something like that. You would never do a prayer of those things because you'd think, what's the point? It's crap. Yeah. But if you were forced into this, if you created this habit of appreciation, you'd want to appreciate something that's valuable to you. Right. So that would shift you into doing something eating something that's definitely more beneficial for your body. So that's pretty much what it is. It's to bring you present to what you're actually allowing to enter into your body and being thankful for that. And that will shift you from making unhealthy choices.
Right. Well, that was fantastic, Warren. That's some really great ideas about how to connect with your food and get the most out of nutrition. That was fantastic. Thank you so much.
As always, it's a pleasure. And again, for all those listening, happy season's greetings.
Yeah, happy holidays, everybody.
Start the year with peace, love, harmony, and health.
Yeah, that's a great idea. All right, well, thank you, Warren, and I look forward to joining you again sometime soon.
Okay, peace and love.
Thanks, Warren.